You know, every time I do make a video about Brock Boeser, I understand why people criticize me. Maybe I am a bit of a Brock Boeser truther. I just really think that in some ways he's an underrated player because I do think that he adds value. I guess I'm just a bit of a goal scoring fan, you know? If a player can consistently to some degree put the puck in the net, that's just really valuable to me. And whether he's scoring 25 or 40 goals, like he adds something to the franchise. And I understand there are more intangibles. I understand that there are criticisms of Brock Boeser. I fully respect that. I just personally think he's a pretty damn good player. And when you make a hole in your lineup, you're just creating another situation. And if you don't have another right shot, right wing, or left wing, right wing, or left wing to take over his position, you're just creating another situation. And at the end of the day, you want Quinn Hughes aside. You want to remain competitive. I would hope Vancouver fans would like to remain competitive. So this is the main criticism that I have of this. Like, hey, why the heck at least not see what he wants and maybe being able to adjust what the Vancouver Canucks are willing to give Brock Boeser as well. Anyways, long story short, I have been an advocate of the Vancouver Canucks at least engaging with him. Like, listen, there is a number that, at least for me, I'm willing to walk away from Brock Boeser. But from these new rumors that we're getting around Brock Boeser, I'm starting to think that the Vancouver Canucks should absolutely circle back. So this is why we have comments from insider Rick Dollywall that is actually really, really interesting. The quote goes, if things don't go his way, I get the feeling Boeser would be willing to talk with Vancouver again. Boeser is coming off a 3-year deal that carried a cap hit of $6.65 million. His next contract is expected to eclipse that amount, with AFP Analytics projecting a 6-year contract with a cap hit of $8.4 million. So obviously, here's the thing. The first thing is that Brock Boeser clearly liked his time in Vancouver. This isn't a place that he is clearly trying to get out of. He clearly liked it there. Like, for example, I'll draw this back to Mitch Marner. It seems to me like Mitch Marner hates being a Leaf, right? It just seems like he just really doesn't genuinely enjoy it. But that's not the case here with Brock Boeser. He seems to like it there. He seems like he's willing to engage back with Vancouver. And listen, I'm an advocate of this. I do think if Brock Boeser actually walks away from Vancouver, that it will be the Vancouver Canucks that are walking away from him. A couple of reminders. Brock Boeser has actually been pretty good in the playoffs. I'm going to put the stats up on the screen. He was about a point per game the last time he made the playoffs, including, I believe, 7 goals. This is a player that can play. What's obviously going to be interesting, in my opinion, is what Brock Boeser can actually command on the open market. I do think that he could get about 8.5 at a 6-year contract. Like, for example, Mitch Marner is completely going to be walking on the Maple Leafs. For a replacement for him, I would be willing to put Brock Boeser there. Now, yes, I know he's not going to replace the point per game that Marner did, but he's going to be able to replace the 25 to 30 goals that Marner did provide, albeit with a little bit less playmaking. Furthermore, Brock Boeser, he absolutely shows up in the playoffs, and that's something that the Leafs need. I understand he's not a perfect player. When people criticize his skating, I completely understand that, but it is what it is. No player is perfect. Now, this is another really interesting quote in this article that I was reading. The article continues, "Term is the big issue for Boeser. It's not money," Dollywall said. Our team's going to give him 7 years. The Canucks are at 5 years. Teams won't have issues giving Brock Boeser $8 million plus. It's the terms that most teams are going to haggle over. Really, really interesting. See, I understand why teams are getting like this, because here's the thing, when you have a player that's in his late 20s, he's never been necessarily a good skater, a lot of teams, rightfully so, are going to worry about his skating and his aging. Now, it kind of is interesting, though, that a lot of players that don't skate really well, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to age bad. Like John Tavares is a player that he's never been a good skater, but he's just been like really good at holding on to the puck. He's really good around the net. You know, it's not like Brock Boeser is going to forget how to shoot the puck, but again, I have no idea how Brock Boeser is actually going to age. Now, the one concerning thing, though, is that Boeser did actually feel, quote, disrespected by the organization. Sometimes when emotions get into this, it creates bigger issues where if a player just feels slighted, he's just not going to return because he feels slighted by the organization. Even if he can't get that much money from other teams, that's just kind of it. He just feels slighted. And that is what I worry about when it comes to Brock Boeser and the Vancouver Canucks. The article continues with another interesting quote. He may not get what he wants on July 1st, Dhaliwal said. I've been told everything is on the table right now. There has been contact between the Canucks and Boeser. At least, listen, I'll say one thing. At least they're just not walking away from it. You have to at least try to engage with them. It's not that long ago that the Vancouver Canucks were a good team. They had Elias Pettersson that took a huge step back. It's kind of weird. I just don't think that the Vancouver Canucks should necessarily completely give up on this core. Again, I'll say it again, if your franchise is in desperate need for a top 6 forward, I mean, you kind of got one right there. Now, another interesting point is that Vancouver does have all of their draft picks this year. They're completely stacked with draft picks. They have 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. I'm really interested to see what they do with that. They do need another top 6 forward. Is it possible that they try to replace this player via trade? Like, they just don't want to get the player and pay him that much. They're worried about the term. Do they try to approach that a different way? I do think that it is interesting that maybe Vancouver feels like they can replace him another way. Right? Maybe they just want to do a trade. They have a draft assets. They could do that. And it might make sense, obviously, depending on what you have to give up. I'm a little bit worried about that because when you sign a player on a contract, you just have to give him that contract and you don't have to give up assets. If the Vancouver Canucks are going to trade for a top 6 forward, that just kind of worries me a bit. You know what I mean? Like, are they going to have to give up prospects? Are they going to have to give a first-round selection? Although they do have all 3 of their first-round selections in the next 3 years, so it depends. Anyways, I just wanted to touch on those signing rumors. If you could make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it, guys. And make sure to have a great day. Goodbye, guys.